The most dangerous words a police officer may say are not, "You're under arrest." They're, "Can you answer a few questions?" Because that sounds harmless, friendly, and informal. But one bad answer in that moment can follow you for months, years, or even the rest of your life. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed? Because what I'm about to break down could keep you from making a life-changing mistake when stress is high and your brain is moving too fast. If you want straight, simple legal education without the fluff, hit that subscribe button right now. Here's what most people get wrong. They think if they have done nothing wrong, talking will clear everything up. That sounds reasonable. It even sounds honest. But police questioning is not a normal conversation. It is not two neighbors chatting over a fence. It is information gathering. And the officer is trained to notice tiny details, small contradictions, nervous words, and offhand comments that you may not even remember saying 10 minutes later. So when an officer says, "Can you answer a few questions?" the safest forward reply is this: "I want a lawyer." Now let me be clear. That is not magic. It does not mean handcuffs vanish. It does not mean the encounter ends right away. But it does something very important. It tells the officer, clearly and directly, that you are not volunteering to be questioned alone. And that one sentence can stop a bad situation from getting much worse. Imagine you're at a traffic stop. The officer walks up and says, "You're not in trouble. I just want to clear something up." "Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? Do you have anything in the car I should know about?" Most people start talking. Then they keep talking. Then they add extra details nobody asked for. Now the officer has a timeline, a story, and maybe a few words that do not match what a passenger says, what a camera shows, or what the officer thinks makes sense. And here's the crazy part. You can sound truthful and still hurt yourself. Stress changes memory. Fear changes wording. Even innocent people guess. They say, "I think, maybe, probably," or "I was just around the corner." Later, those words can look like lies, even when they were just nervous guesses. Let me break this down for you. Police can use what you say. They can also use what you consent to. If you talk too much, you may give them a reason to dig deeper. If you try too hard to look cooperative, you may talk yourself into trouble you never needed. And if you are a gun owner, the stakes can get even higher. A simple comment about where your firearm is, how you carried it, why you moved it, or what happened right before the stop can become the center of the whole case. Here's a hypothetical example to explain this. Let's say you are legally carrying. The officer asks, "Why were you reaching over there?" You answer, "I was moving my gun because I didn't want it seen." You meant nothing criminal. You were nervous. But now your own words may sound suspicious. The officer may hear concealment, access, intent, or fear. Same facts, different spin. That is why your goal is not to win the conversation. Your goal is to protect yourself during the conversation. First thing, stay calm. Second, keep your hands visible. Third, do not argue. Fourth, do not explain. And fifth, if questioning starts, use the 4 words, "I want a lawyer." Notice what I did not say. I did not say be rude. I did not say resist. I did not say refuse lawful orders. If the officer tells you to step out, step out. If your state requires identification in that situation, provide it. If you're driving, you usually need to provide your license, registration, and proof of insurance. But answering questions beyond basic required information is a different issue. But wait, there's something even more important. A lot of people think silence alone protects them. It does not always work that way in the real world. If you just stand there, shrug, mumble, or say, "I don't know," that can turn messy fast. Clear words matter. Direct words matter. And "I want a lawyer" is short, simple, and hard to misunderstand. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the exact phrases that can protect you when police ask about your gun during a stop. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because these small wording choices can make a huge difference when the pressure is on. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The reason those 4 words are so powerful is because the law cares a lot about clarity. Vague hints do not help much. Saying, "Maybe I should talk to somebody," is weak. Saying, "Do I need a lawyer?" is weak. Saying, "I think I want an attorney," can create room for argument. But "I want a lawyer" is clear. It is direct. It is hard to twist. And once you say it, here's the next rule that matters just as much. Stop talking. That part is where people fail. They say the right words, then they keep chatting. The officer says, "Okay, that's your choice, but help me understand one thing." And then the person jumps right back in. That defeats the whole point, so the script is simple. Be respectful, be calm, use the words, then be quiet. Here's how that can sound in real life. The officer says, "Can you answer a few questions?" You say, "I want a lawyer." If the officer keeps going, you repeat it, "I want a lawyer." If the officer tries a softer angle, like, "If you've got nothing to hide, help me understand," you do not explain. You say, "I want a lawyer." Same words, same tone, no drama. Have you ever wondered why officers often say things like, we can clear this up right now, or this is your chance to tell your side, it is because people feel a strong urge to explain themselves. That urge is natural. It is human. It is also dangerous. You think you are helping. The officer may think you are admitting, changing your story, or filling in gaps they can investigate. Here's what most people get wrong. They think asking for a lawyer makes them look guilty. No, it makes you look careful. It makes you look like someone who understands that words matter. Innocent people need lawyers too. In fact, innocent people often need them badly, because innocent people are more likely to believe they can just explain everything away. Now, quick legal note, this is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. Let me add one more layer. There's a big difference between an officer giving you lawful commands and an officer asking questions. If the officer says, "Put your hands on the wheel," that is not a question. Do it. If the officer says, "Step out of the vehicle," do it. If the officer says, "Do you mind if I look in the trunk?" that is a request. Those are not the same thing. People mix them up all the time. And here's the part nobody's talking about. Many encounters start as just a few questions, then turn into detention, a vehicle search request, a phone search request, or a fishing trip about guns, ammo, alcohol, medication, or where you were earlier. The earlier you protect your words, the better. If you're not sure whether you are free to leave, you can calmly ask, "Am I free to go?" If the answer is yes, leave quietly. If the answer is no, do not fight about it on the roadside. That is not the place to argue law. That is the place to protect yourself with calm behavior and very few words. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the people who want simple, real-world legal education before they need it in a crisis. Click subscribe, because one video watched today can save you from a terrible decision tomorrow. Let's talk about the situations where this matters most for gun owners, because this is the part that shocked me when I first started seeing how these cases unfold. First, the traffic stop. You get pulled over. Maybe you were speeding. Maybe your tag light is out. Maybe the officer says you rolled through a stop sign. Then the questions start. Any weapons in the car? Why are you going to that area? Why did you look so nervous? Why is that bag on the back seat? If you're in a state with a duty to inform, follow that law. But outside of what the law requires, do not turn the stop into a long interview. Give required documents. Follow commands. Do not narrate your life story. Second, the knock at your door. An officer says, "We just want to ask about something that happened nearby." This is where many people make a huge mistake. They step outside, start chatting, and before long the officer asks, "Mind if we come in?" Or "Mind if we take a look around?" Don't make this mistake. Stepping into a casual tone can make you forget the risk. If questioning starts, use the words, "I want a lawyer." Third, after defensive gun use, this is the one that scares people most, and for good reason. Imagine you just lived through the worst 10 seconds of your life. Your heart is racing, your hearing is weird, your memory is broken into pieces. You may say things out of order. You may leave out key facts. You may sound cold when you are really in shock. In that moment, your brain is not a courtroom quality recording device, so do not try to give a long, polished story on the spot. Request help if anyone is hurt. Identify yourself if required, then protect yourself. I want a lawyer. Fourth, on the friendly follow-up call. Days later, an investigator says, "We're just trying to close the file." Sounds harmless, right? But here's the truth. A second interview is often about locking you into details. Tiny differences between your first and second version can become a big deal. Again, same answer. I want a lawyer. Most people think danger comes from obvious pressure, but the truth is, danger often comes from comfort. A friendly tone, a casual smile, a simple question. That is when people relax and start talking. Let me give you one more hypothetical example. Say an officer asks, "Do you always carry that gun loaded?" You laugh and say, "Of course, what's the point if it isn't?" You meant it as a joke. But later, someone may claim that statement shows a certain mindset or intent. That is how innocent words become expensive words. So here are the 4 mistakes to avoid. Do not explain. Do not guess. Do not volunteer consent. Do not keep talking after you ask for counsel. If you remember those 4 things, you're already ahead of most people. And one more warning. Never lie. Some people hear "don't talk" and think that means make something up. No, that is a disaster. The smart move is not to invent. The smart move is to shut the interview down politely and clearly. This information could literally matter the next time you get stopped, questioned, or contacted after a stressful event. Subscribe now, because the next video breaks down exactly what to say when police start asking about your firearm, your permit, or whether you consent to a search. Laws move fast, cases move faster, and you do not want to learn this stuff the hard way. So here's the takeaway. When an officer says, "Can you answer a few questions?" do not treat that like small talk. Treat it like a moment that can shape everything that comes next. Stay calm, follow lawful commands, give required identifying information when the law requires it, and if questioning begins, use the 4 words, "I want a lawyer." If this helped you think more clearly about your rights, subscribe right now and share this with one person you care about. Because the worst time to learn how to protect yourself is after you have already talked too much. And just to keep this simple and honest, this video is general educational information. It is not personal legal advice, and laws can vary by state and by situation. If you are dealing with a real case, talk to a qualified attorney in your area as soon as possible.